So this is a report from a number of members of our team, and it is our activities. Technically, we're reporting on the period, as we've said already, from the 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of June 2021. But that's nearly 10 months ago, so our enthusiastic team can't help themselves but to enthuse about some of the current activities as well. So we will be including some of that in this review as well. So a bit tedious to start with. I think we're all fed up of talking about the pandemic, but getting through the pandemic as an organisation was quite challenging. For me personally, it was far more challenging than when I finally did get COVID. Yes, we went from quite a light touch in managing the organisation to meeting weekly or every 2 weeks in a crisis team, looking at trying to understand the government's various guidelines on what we should and shouldn't be doing, some of which was very sensible and some was absolutely ridiculous, since it didn't seem to make any distinction between volunteering, whether it was indoors or outdoors, for example, during various lockdowns. But you can see I took a number of screenshots of our meetings. This was the only one where we were all smiling. There was some frowning happening as well. And we did manage one outdoor meeting, a whole team meeting, pretty much a social get-together in the home farm orchard at Stanmer as well. But enough about COVID and enough about coping. As John said, it has been challenging for the finances. But first of all, Robbie in the middle here, is out there somewhere, and he's going to share his screen and do a presentation on the scrumping project.
Right, hello everybody. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Right. So we're talking about scrumping project in July 2020, June 2021. This is still middle of pandemic, middle of lockdown, middle of isolation. Right, we got a lot to cover. So people care at scrumping project is integral part of our operation, is a very important part of our operation, and yet that part of our operation never making into any of the spreadsheets or any of the accounts. Here I would like to introduce you to Zhao. She was one of our volunteers. She came here to England from China, so she was already isolated from her friends and family. She is a PhD student, so amount of work pushed her further into isolation, and then we have a lockdown. So she basically was left alone. For people like Zhao, for our volunteers, we provided warm welcome. We provided a physical activity away from artificial light, away from a screen. As well, we minimized the effects of isolation by providing a human contact and interaction. As a matter of fact, we provided a warm welcome to 186 volunteers in the reporting year. This is basically our efforts for people care at this scrumping project. The earth care at the scrumping project, you see, if you're asking where our apples, where our fruits coming from, 68% of our fruits come from Graham Love or Gleaning Project. This is commercially grown apples. Basically, they just didn't make it. They're not pretty enough. They have a wrong color, shape, or size, and all of those apples meant to be discarded. 16% of our apples come from Stemma. This is our headquarters. This is our flagship of orchard. It's a very, very proud number. 12%, and that's red color, comes from Brighton Gardens, Brighton and Hove Gardens. That will include NEP. In the reporting year, we teamed up with the Ned Castle, with Nep Rewilding Project. We collected their apples, we produced juice, and they stick their own logo on top on it, and they basically selling our juice that we have produced. 3% coming from juicing services. This is basically when people, when they have their hobby trees, hobby orchards, they can bring apples to us. We can turn those apples into juice. And 1% comes from outright donations, or basically some of the people bring apples to us, and we're treating this as a partial payment, and we're exchanging apples for juice. I wanted to call that service Apple Pay, but there is some problem with that naming of that. We scrumped 34 tons of apples. Here as a visual reference, I'm standing right in the middle next to 135 kilograms of apples. If I would like to take this picture of me with all of the apples that we have processed, this picture would look something like this. So I'm still in that picture, I'm still in the right corner, but it's just big amount of apples. The small green font, 28 tons, is representing this year. The big 34 tons is in the reporting year, and the green one is a year to date. Once we turn those apples into juice, and then we bottle it and we pasteurize it, we put a label on it. We have Sue, that she's standing next to 20 bottles of apples. If I would like to take a picture of Sue next to all of the bottles that we have made, that picture would look something like that. Please keep in mind that she is still in the far right corner over there. This is basically visual representation what we have done at the scrumping project. Obviously the small green font represents this year. And let's go to FareShare. We thought during the pandemic, during the lockdown, that we hit the rock bottom of poverty. The situation showed us different, but we were lucky enough that we were able to supply over 7,000 bottles into a FareShare to support the poorest community in Brighton and Hove. And this is my favorite part. I would like to say big thank you to the team I have worked with in the reporting year, to Bryn, Stefan, Robert, Jan, Sue, and Fran. As you have seen, there are big numbers, there are proud numbers, and we only achieved that through our hard work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robbie. And next, I would like to invite Jenny to share her screen and talk about the work with community orchards around the city. Jenny, if you share your screen, it will just overwrite my screen.
Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Blank looks, that's good. Blank looks is good. Yes, thanks for that. Wow, grand presentation, Robbie, that's fantastic. So I'm just going to talk to you again. It's using the same reporting period, but we're cheating and doing a little bit of what we've done this winter just gone. So the work that we're talking about is the orchard plantings that we've done across Brighton and Hove, and also across the wider Sussex region as well. Just bearing in mind, so I've kind of cut it into two sorts of orchards really. So we're talking here about Urban Tree Challenge Fund orchards. This was funding from the Forestry Commission that's allowed us to do outreach work into communities, particularly that sort of register on what they call the deprivation scale. So this is a specific bit of funding that we've done. So in that first year, we planted 70 trees in the areas that have been highlighted here on the map. So some various people getting involved, but bearing in mind this was during lockdown, so actually getting volunteers outside or getting people together was very difficult. So there was 9 separate locations within those 5 broad areas that we planted at, and we were able to rally like a number of volunteer sessions. There's only a couple of volunteer sessions that we were able to get away with in the end. But here's some people doing some brilliant aftercare work as well on those sites. Then this is the bit that we're sort of sneaking it in from sort of the winter we've just done. So we had another dollop of money to spend from the UTCF fund, and this winter just passed, we planted 88 trees. This time we've had 11 locations within 3 areas of Brighton Hove, plus also 1 in Adrian Worthing and also at Peacehaven. So here's some of the slightly more cheerful looking pictures. It's been sunnier this winter for some reason. So some of the areas that we've planted in this year, we still have some further planting to do with the fund for this coming season to finish that off. Yeah, so again, so here on this we had more like 15 volunteer sessions that we were able to use for doing planting prepping, and also some of the follow-up care that we were doing with orchards too. So that was the sort of a discrete bit of funding. Then this is other orchards that we planted across the last 2 winters. So we have various different funded orchards. So sometimes people will self-fund, but if they're from a community where it meets some of our specific funding that we get from Infinity, which is obviously most people know, I think, so a cooperative wholesale producers down there in the Shoreham warehouse. So they fund orchards for us. And also this year, so this season just gone, we've also been approached by Coir Products, who's another Brighton based company who wanted to also donate a community orchard. And in those cases, we tend to work with community groups or schools where there's again an element of meeting the needs of the community. So these are the ones from 2021. So this is Surrendon Field here. This is actually councillors who paid for this, so from the Brighton councillors, which is nice. And then more recently in this winter, we've got a whole range. So we've got the 2 and 3 Infinity gardens that we're able to pay for, plus the Coir Products one at Saunders Park, which was great fun. So that's just giving you at a glance some of the stats that I've been talking about. So we did 95 trees in that first in the year that we're reporting on, and then this year just gone, I think probably one of our biggest totals, 138 trees we've just planted. We still have a remaining 65 trees to plant in this winter coming. That's at 2 locations. That's again in Adrian Worthing and then also in Bevendine, and we're planning hopefully to do another round of funding. I do have to say that so some of our work is also not just around planting trees, but it's also for aftercare of trees. So that's where we've identified orchards that might need some additional support, and here we've got some of the stats around orchards that we've identified and we've been able to give some extra special TLC to. But it's been really lovely to be able to have a lot more volunteer sessions in this more recent period. And then just a really big thanks to the Community Orchards team. So that is thanks to Stefan, to Paul, to Peter, to Bryn, to Robbie, Jeremy, and to Kirsty at Racel as well. So just thanks to everybody for just being an absolutely cracking team getting the work done. Thank you so much.
Next, we would like to feature some work from Racel Orchard. Kirsty, who is our key lead up there, has an evening job and so hasn't been able to present at the last few AGMs. So Robbie has very kindly been up there today, hot off the press, and shot a video of Kirsty, the Queen of Racehill Orchard. So Robbie, would you like to share that with us?
And hi everyone, my name's Kirsty, Queen of Racehill Community Orchard and one of the main session leaders for this wonderful, beautiful place. Now, since the pandemic, although we've had really limited numbers of volunteers at times, I've been able to manage this orchard and for once keep on top of the excessive amount of brambles and things that have been swamping the place. We've had so many new people discover this orchard since the pandemic. We've had people who never even knew this existed and have suddenly come across this place, a fair few of which have now become volunteers for this orchard. I've had my regular volunteers helping me throughout this crazy time. Since the pandemic, I've had a regular core group of volunteers who've been really brilliant in helping me keep on top of this orchard and look after it. Managed to clear an extra bit of orchard, which is now had 26 brand new trees planted upon it. I had help from Brighton Conservation volunteers and Neil's Nomads, which have been brilliant in really getting the major bits of work done in preparation for this large new area of Race Hill. Also, we've planted 2 new memorial trees for people who've lost loved ones, and we've also adopted a scheme where people can adopt existing trees for memorial purposes. The orchard is thriving. We've got so much wildlife and birds. We have our regular kestrel who lives on the orchard, always a happy sight. The people who regularly visit the orchard have been really appreciative of it, and things are just grooving away nicely.
A project I didn't really plan to feature in this year's presentation, but a very important project. Peter's here with us, who's a key leader on some projects at Stammer, the Stammer Orchards and the National Collection of Sussex Apples. The main thing to report on in the reporting period, which I haven't got a picture of it, is we planted 8 more Sussex apples. The first Sussex apples we planted in this orchard, in the old orchard. That's the one at the back of the walled garden, one garden. Yeah. So next, Fran. Fran, would you like to unmute and join us? So are you there?
I am there. Thank you.
Fantastic. So the permaculture plot at Stammer Organics, which Fran leads on.
Yeah, that's quite an old picture there, bless you. Yeah, so just very briefly, because obviously we're going back now to, as you say, just after the lockdowns in April of 21. So we carried on putting some food into the emergency bags just up until about round about, I think, sort of May, and then we were able to have our volunteers back on site, only 4 plus us, so 6 people together, because obviously we had to make sure that we could have people socially distanced inside the polytunnel if the weather was bad. So so that did limit what we did, but I think people were like, in fact I shared a lot of Kirsty's volunteers like H, and they were amazing. They came along and they really cleared the debris and everything, or the wildness, I should say, that had built up over the real lockdowns in that hot weather. But it wasn't a great year in terms of our growing. I think Robert would probably agree with me. I think it got him down a bit, really, that either things bolted or the little critters got more than their fair share. So we did manage to have enough to feed our volunteers, but there really wasn't, we kind of have limped through once we got to the middle of that year. We also lost our grapevine and all our harvest. You can see it in that lovely picture inside, looking to sour grape, which was very sad because we thought we were going to have a really good bumpy year, and then they all went sour and we had to cut it right back. One of the things we did, though, because we'd had a complete failing with the large pond, and we were sort of kind of acknowledging defeat on that, and decided that we'd try and turn that into a bigger bog garden, which I think H is working on a design for at the moment, was to, I had quite a lot of really nice butyl left over from a project we were doing at home. So we brought that up and we made 3 smaller ponds actually more integrated into the site so that we'd have that extra habitat within the existing system. And the other thing, so that's Kerry there, who came up from Whitehawk projects and was very, very helpful. The signs were done by Minnie, which was absolutely gorgeous sign she did for us, and then they all really struggled with the sunshine and the weather and the rains and the storms, so she's had to redo them all, so they don't look like that anymore, but that's what they look like in 2021. And she's hoping to help us out with some more sign painting, both down at the fruit factory. I think Robbie's quite keen to engage in that, and on site. So our ponds have now established, but you know that was the very beginnings when they went in there. So that it's, yeah. So we met, but the forest schools were able to manage to meet. So we actually, between that and the selling of our plants, we did manage to meet all our bills with a little bit of excess, which was great. I think probably I think Mercedes was probably going out of her mind because she was in a lot of lockdown and couldn't get to the site for quite a long time during this period. I think that was quite hard for you, Mercedes, wasn't it? And Robert was just holding the fort valiantly. I think he got a few key volunteers to come in and help him with the vegetables, which I think probably, you know, I think it was quite hard on them, sort of mental health this year, but we did come through it, you know, much more positively towards the end. And we also managed to, well, that's into the next year, so I don't know whether I'm talking about anything into 2022 or 2021, late 2021, whether we're cutting off in June. But we did manage to at least get some on-site courses happening at the end of that year, at the end of 2021, but that's really next year's report. Yeah, so I think that probably, you know, the dedication of our volunteers was so key, but I think being only able to have 4 coming meant that people were very frustrated at not being able to book in, and we did actually lose a few people as a result of that in the long run, but there was a few that just been the mainstays, and you know, and thank you so much for all of those people that have made kept the site going, but it's in good shape. It is currently in good shape, and we have bounced back. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Fran. That was great. Yes, regular Thursday volunteer days at the plot for those
are still continuing. Know. Yes, that's right.
So, our course and event programme. Well, as John already mentioned earlier, it took quite a hit during the pandemic. We ran half the number of courses that we did in an average year, 14 courses, and half the number of participants, about 230 participants on our course and events, booked events, that is. But the biggest challenge was that from teaching entirely face-to-face, I think most of us didn't even know what Zoom was when the pandemic started, to learning to teach online was a big learning curve for us, and I think we did pretty well, and we got quite a pretty positive response. So our most popular course is an introduction to permaculture, and we did 6 blended courses, which is mostly online, but also an outdoor visit to Stanmer during the year. And now, speaking currently, we are offering both in-person weekend and blended format courses. So it'll be interesting to see going forward how many people want to do each format of course. I think there's a bit of an initial lashback or whatever reaction to doing so much online, going back to physical courses, but I think over the time and in winter we'll be doing a mixture of the two. The permaculture design course, we ran pretty much 3 courses online. March 2021 one started. These are part-time courses, and again in October 21 outside the reporting period. And we're planning an in-person course for autumn 2022. So a new course, we did an entirely online self-built and earthship course. It was led on by Low Carbon Trust, and a lot of new resources created for that and a new learning platform. And 3 courses ran in 2021, another 2 this year, and more planned for the winter. Then we ran a number of other courses, a combination of online and outdoors. Peter and I did the Planning and Planting a Small Orchard course and the Care of Fruit Trees course, basically doing the indoor theory sessions, presenting the same material across Zoom, and then outdoor visits to Stanmer. And there we are in the old orchard with a random dog to keep us company. And Fran did an in-person practical permaculture gardening course, and that was during one of the periods between lockdowns. And we, as most of you will know, run a very popular Green Architecture Day, or have done for a number of years, and we postponed it and then moved it online, and that ran in this year. So that was a big learning curve for us as well, but it was moderately well attended. There were plenty of bookings, and we had some great speakers, and the presentations, for those who missed them, are available online, I believe. And this is one of the speakers making mushroom or fungi based building block materials using recycled materials. So a very inspiring talk that was. And then moving on to events, here's Peter explaining grafting at the Apple Blossom Tour in May 2021. That was planned during a lockdown with military precision, with no more than 10 people on any one tour, and a one-way system through the orchard, and people exited via the gift shop at the stall at the fruit factory to buy scrumped goodies. But there was about 40 or 50 people booked on those sessions, so that went very well. So there we are. That's our report on the activities for the year, and I'd just like to thank particularly all the members of our team and all the members, all the volunteers particularly, who've made it all possible, and the trustees are here making everything possible as well. And now's an opportunity to thank all the trustees for all their hard work, particularly during the pandemic. They've really stepped up to the mark.